Uh, Good morning, church. It's good to see y'all's faces. Always very encouraging. Um, so I'm a part of the campus ministry here, like these other guys, and I had the ability to go to ICMC as well. I had a great time. The retreat, it was truly great. A great time to connect, great time to meet new people, and what these guys shared, we all kind of experienced a little bit of that. It was an awesome time. But one of the things I love about retreats and stuff like that, where everybody comes together, is there's so many lessons going on. As you probably noticed, everybody shares something a little different, right? It's just so dense, but there's so much that everybody can get something else from it. And I don't know, it's just really awesome. If you ever have the chance to go to a church retreat or something of that nature, take the opportunity. It's well worth it to build the connections, grow closer with God, and just see the kingdom. It's awesome. But one of my takeaways that I want to share about today is talking about glory. So as Aaron said, the title was Glory, and the title for the lesson today is Experiencing Glory. So let's read some scripture this morning. If you guys want to get into Exodus 3, that's where we will be right now. Exodus 3, verse 1. We will read 1 through 6 and then 10 through 12. Exodus 3:1 says, "Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the far side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. So Moses thought, 'I will go over and see this strange sight, why the bush doesn't burn up.' When the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called him from within the bush, 'Moses, Moses.' And Moses said, 'Here I am.' 'Do not come any closer,' God said. 'Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground.' Then he said, 'I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob.' At this, Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God." In verse 10, "So now go, I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt." But Moses said to God, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" And God said, "I will be with you." Awesome passage. It's great to see just people experiencing God's presence for the first time, seeing God's glory. In Moses' encounter, the first thing, he saw the burning bush, right? This is what God's presence, God showed himself for the first time to Moses. He sees the bush. God reveals the plan that, okay, I need you to go and free my people, free your people. Moses' initial response was hesitation and self-doubt. But in the face of his resistance, Moses is reassured by God saying, "I'll be with you." This encounter with God's glory transforms Moses into a leader and ultimately a servant of God. And in Moses' response, I believe that there is something that we can learn from him. So let's assess this a little bit deeper, right? The voice calls out to him, and he says, "Here I am." God says, "No closer," then proclaims who he is. And then Moses immediately hid his face in fear. God commissions him to save his people, and Moses said, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" Moses' first interactions with God involved him hiding his face. He felt fear, and he was humbled by the force that he was witnessing. God challenges Moses with the journey to free his people, right? And Moses sees that this is a very daunting task. But at the end of it, what does Moses do? Moses went. Granted, he put up a lot of resistance if you read on through that. But in verse 20 of chapter 4, it reads, "So Moses took his wife and sons, put them on a donkey, started back to Egypt." He went. Let's look at some other leaders that have been commissioned by God. Let's take a look at Isaiah, for instance. So how did Isaiah react to seeing God's presence for the first time? It says, "Woe to me, I cried. I am ruined, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips, and my eyes have seen the King, the Lord Almighty." That's Isaiah 6:5. But let's look at some others. I think this is interesting. You might notice a trend going on here. Let's look at Gideon. In Judges 6:15, it says, "Pardon me, my lord," Gideon replied, "but how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest of Manasseh, and I am the least in my family." In Jeremiah 1:6, we see Jeremiah's first interaction with God. "Alas, sovereign Lord," I said, "I do not know how to speak. I am too young." In Ezekiel 1:28, "Like the appearance of a rainbow in the clouds on a rainy day, so was the radiance around him. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. When I saw it, I fell face down, and I heard the voice of one speaking." In John, in the Revelation account, this is his first interaction. "When I saw him, I fell at his feet as though dead. Then he placed his right hand on me and said, 'Do not be afraid. I am the first and the last.'" And that's Revelation 1:17. And one more, Joshua. Joshua 5:14. "Then Joshua fell face down to the ground in reverence and asked him, 'What message does my Lord have for his servant?'" So hopefully you see the trend of what's going on when people experience God's glory for the first time, when God reveals himself to them. And, in this, God repeatedly chose people who felt unworthy, who felt like, man, this is not for me. Like, surely you got the wrong guy. Like, can I actually do this, God? Some of them figuratively and literally fell to their knees. This is a common theme with all of these guys. They feel just a sense of humility, fear, just awe in the presence of God. But that's what God's glory does. While we were there, we had a message on Sunday. It was from a guy from overseas. It was really awesome. But the minister, he spoke about how in the church, there are some things that we treat as acceptable that should be treated as unacceptable. He brought some good points up, and I've been dwelling on them recently. And some of them I've never considered, and some of them I'm guilty of. And it made me think, like, how did we get here? How did we get to this position? And, this is what happens. We get to these positions when we have forgotten what our first experience with God's glory was like. We don't remember the power that we felt. We don't remember the awe that we felt. We don't remember the glory that God has when we saw him for the first time. We lose a drive for the mission. God commissioned us to spread the good news all around, or we let things continue on in our pride, or some things just as bad. We get soft on sin. And the sad truth is there's more things that are like this that I didn't mention. But, I think a lot of you guys can relate to the feeling of forgetting just how glorious God is, right, in our actions. Does God still feel as glorious to you as he once did? Is your level of reverent submission still the same as it was? Do you fall to your knees when God calls? For myself, I all too often lose sight of the glory. But church, I have some good news for us. We got to humble ourselves, guys. We sing the song here. We sing, Here Am I, Send Me." It's a song full of surrender, talking about God's power, commitment to follow God unwaveringly, no matter how we feel. Do we believe that? Like, church, do we want that? Is that the spirit that we want? Do we want a heart that hears the cry for help comes ringing through the land and responds with, "I must be more faithful. Here am I, send me"? And I'm here to tell us, if we feel like his glory isn't at some level that it should be, or it's not at the level that it was previously for us, it's always been there, right? God has always been glorious from the beginning to the end. And for me, I can get caught up in comfort or get caught up in routine. And my memory becomes a little fuzzy about how good I actually got it, right? How good we actually have it in God's kingdom. I lose sight of the power. I lose sight of his glorious power. I lose sight of the glory. I think that song verse is so fitting, though, in just being able to find a continued revealing of God's glory to us. A quote from the song is, "I must be more faithful. Here am I, send me." And a step in faith is often required when we want to experience God's glory. I got another scripture for us in Exodus. This is a good little case study. Exodus 14, verse 13 through 18. Exodus 14, 13 through 18 reads, Moses answered the people, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to move on. Raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea to divide the water, so that the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground. I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they will go in after them. And I will gain glory through Pharaoh and all his army, through his chariots and his horsemen. The Egyptians will know that I am the Lord when I gain glory through Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen." You know, the Israelites, as you probably can conclude from this story, they were trapped between Pharaoh's army and the Red Sea. And they were between a rock and a hard place. And they had nowhere to go. It was time for them to have the faith that they needed to experience God's glory. You know, Moses tells them, "Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord." And I love that. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. After they stepped out on faith, God parts the Red Sea, revealing his glory through their deliverance. This just demonstrates faith preceding God's works that he does, his miraculous works for us. And I have a question for you if you're taking notes, if you want to write this one down. Do I live a lifestyle where I see God's glory often? I must be more faithful. Here am I, send me. You know, I have an actual question for you guys. Like, you guys can say something. How glorious is our God? How glorious is our God? Yeah, we'll do hands. There you go. If you want to say something, go for it. Immeasurably. I love that. Yeah. You know, how glorious is our God? You know, I love that, immeasurably. And I think this scripture that I'm about to share really, really shows that. In Isaiah 40, verse 28, it says, "Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary, and his understanding no one can fathom." This is a verse that speaks to me personally. If you guys know me, I'm a big nature guy. I love just maybe a tree hugger, you can call me that. Some people call me environmentalist or whatever. But yeah, so, you know, I think nature has kind of brought my faith into being, right? That's kind of where it started off for me, just really exploring God's creation and seeing his reflection in that. But I have some really cool facts for us. I'm going to nerd out with you guys here for a little. But just about just about how glorious God is in the world that we live in. So listen up. It's going to be a little bit of reading, but these are awesome. So according to the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA, Earth is approximately 93 million miles from the sun within the Goldilocks zone. If Earth were 5% closer, the surface temperature would be too hot for liquid water. If 5% farther, it would be too cold. The moon stabilizes Earth's tilt and causes tides. Without the moon, the Earth's tilt could vary drastically, leading to extreme climate changes, and ocean life would be severely impacted by the lack of tides. Earth's magnetic field protects the planet from harmful solar radiation and cosmic rays. Without the magnetic field, solar winds would strip away the atmosphere, making Earth uninhabitable. According to the Oxford University Press, Earth's atmosphere is composed of 78% nitrogen and 21% oxygen. A slight increase in oxygen could lead to uncontrollable fires, while a decrease would make breathing difficult for most life forms. The strength of the four fundamental forces, and this is kind of bringing in chemistry. You guys got to remember back to your chemistry classes if you took those. Gravity, electromagnetism, the weak nuclear force, and the strong nuclear force. They are finely tuned. Even slight variations in these constants could prevent the formation of atoms, stars, and planets. If the gravitational force were slightly stronger, stars would burn too quickly and unevenly, preventing stable planetary systems. If it were weaker, stars might not ignite at all, leading to dark, lifeless universes, or the universe. I got another one for you guys. I think this one's really neat. Uh, this is according to Cambridge University. The ratio of protons to electrons in the universe is exactly 1-to-1, ensuring that the universe is electrically negative. If this ratio were slightly different, electromagnetic forces would dominate gravity, preventing the formation of galaxies, stars, and planets. If you guys see a theme in this as well, it's that God made the universe great for us. He put this together in a way that, like the scripture says, we can't fathom it. I think it's so amazing, and it just builds my faith all the more. There's more dealings with the rotation of the speed of the earth, water's heat capacity, earth's tilt degree. There's a long list Jupiter has a part in our survival. It's a long list of things that God got right in order for us to be here today. Our God is so glorious. So as I'm closing up here, I just want us to remember the awe-inspiring glory of our God. From Moses to Isaiah, the encounters with God's glory brought humility and a deep sense of his majesty. Even if our daily lives may cause us to lose sight of it, God's glory remains ever present. I encourage each of us to reflect on our response to God. Are we still humbled by his presence? Do we truly mean, "Here am I, send me"? Let's strive to live in a way that reflects his magnificence and walk in faith, just as the Israelites did at the Red Sea. And I'm truly grateful for this summer, being able to be an intern, and just people being able to pour into me and just support me and encourage me. And I hope I'm doing the same with you guys. But may we all be inspired to seek God's glory in our daily lives and respond to him with faith and obedience. Thank you.